Right now we have plug-and titled Bridge Tools for Tomorrow's Makerspaces, and we have Hoang over here. So please welcome her. And she's here all the way from Saigon, so let's pass the time to her.
Okay. Hello everyone. So I hope that you won't find that I'm too off topic with this topic. Okay. It sounds really cool, right? But I should start by saying that I cannot read in the future. Okay. So actually, I don't know exactly what the talk might be. This is just an exploration of, some thoughts about what the future of Makerspace might be. So first, a little bit about myself. So I'm Hoang. I'm French Vietnamese. Okay, I've been living in France. I grew up in France. I was born in Vietnam. I grew up in France. I worked in France. I worked then in the UK, and I've been living in for 5 years in Vietnam now. I started Connect and FABLAB SAIGON. Connect, I want to develop it as a social entrepreneurship, like an impact incubator. Okay, and I started FABLAB SAIGON, and I want it to be like a social business. So it's for profit. It has to sustain itself, and it has to create impact in society. And yeah, I put some of my favorite keywords if you want to talk to me. Well, if you happen to talk to me, you see that I talk a lot about agile, self-organization, because I was in software development before, education, impact, and entrepreneurship. Okay. Just a little bit on my background. So first, that's a very quite common definition of what a makerspace is. Makerspace is a community center with tools. Okay, it's very important, the tools that you have in a makerspace. So I did a bit of research, don't have to go that far, but basically there are several areas. First, you need a space, it's very important. Okay, I'm starting by saying what we currently have in makerspace. Right? So you have a space, it has to be safe, ventilated, everything. You have, typically general tools. I guess that nothing new here for you who knows about Makerspace. You do woodworking, metalworking, okay? You do electronics, textiles. You could see there, downstairs with the sewing machine. You have laser cutting, CNC cutting, okay? You have 3D printer and computers, okay? So far, nothing new. You know everything about that. But I think what is really interesting about Makerspace is that more than a space with tools, it's about creating creative people. Okay? So one component of Makerspace is very important one, is actually the people. Okay? And in fact, the people, as I see it, it's people who have concern. Okay? They have concern about what they can do, basically. And they are quite diverse most of the time. We try to bring a very diverse community in Makerspace most of the time, with different skills. And they all have this kind of culture in common. They are willing to learn, they're willing to try, they've got plenty of ideas. Okay? And when the Makerspace, when you look up for Makerspace, actually it's interesting because on Wikipedia you have no entry for Makerspace. The entry redirects you to Hackerspace. So the Makerspace has a lot of legacy, the cultural legacy from Hackerspace. And actually Makerspace comes from, Del Doherty from magazine, and the story is that initially he wanted to have a magazine called he didn't want to do Maker, to name it Maker, Make, but Hack, okay? Because he had all this hackers culture that goes with it, okay? But hacker, from hacking to making, it was more accessible. Like hacking is more like something that is reserved to certain people who have in-depth knowledge, and they can hack something, tweak something to do something completely different from what its first purpose is. Okay. So it came from hacking to hacking from making, and I found it quite interesting because to me it's really bringing the hacking culture to make it a lot more accessible to a lot of more people. Okay. And by doing so, basically, you can tap into people's concern, what people are concerned about, and they can use the tools there to address those concerns, basically. And so in Saigon, we started a FABLAB, and I think it's two different streams. So one comes from the makers movement, and the other part from FABLAB with Neil Gershenfeld is like, what about bringing all those tools to the people so that we can unleash their imagination, basically, giving them the means to solve their own problems. Okay, and by doing so, we go back to the fact that people have concerns. They think they want problems they want to solve, basically, and FabLabs and Makerspace are providing them the tools to actually have an impact on that concern. Okay, is it all right? Okay. So from those two trends, and I like I'm insisting on the word concern because basically, I don't know if you read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, but in there you say, okay, so you have your circle of concern, and then you have your circle of control. So what you can do, basically, okay, and the whole theory is, okay, if your circle of concern is very wide and you keep your time outside of your circle of control, then there's not much you can do, and there's a lot of frustration and a lot of stress, and therefore you're not effective. Okay, so the key is to focus on your circle of control, things you can do. Okay, and so for me, somehow giving access to more tools to people expands the circle of control. Okay, so going back a little bit, I think that you have all these people coming to Makerspace and they have concerns, they are worried about lots of things. They see problems they want to solve. Okay, and by bringing them tools from the Makerspace, then we give them more control and they can actually start to be creative and put things into action, and that's much less frustration for them. Okay, so it's really taking ownership of your problems, trying to solve them. Okay, and I think that is one thing that is happening in Makerspaces, and something that somehow libraries wanted to create that kind of spirit. Okay, but didn't manage to go that far. Okay, with Makerspace, from my point of view, it goes much deeper than that. Okay, and yeah, I'm re-quoting Gershenfeld on that, and when you give the means to people to solve their own problem, that is very, very deep. Okay. So I had a question from that. Okay, what is the concern of people coming to Makerspace? And I think that's the case. Basically, was not only on building objects, okay, but their concerns were more on social issues, environment, economy, public health. Okay, if that is their concern and they are willing, they have this culture of going into places to try to solve that. Okay, then you have people with concerns, and how do you manage to give them more control over that? Okay, and so the question is, what if we had the tools to model and test society choices? Okay, I hope I haven't lost you so far. But the idea is that basically you have systems today, it's software, okay, and they do agent-based models. Okay, and I'm going to try to explain you a little bit on that. I'm no expert in that, honestly. Okay, but the idea is that using those systems, those tools, for me they are tools, you could actually make policies. You can test policies. Okay, so is any one of you familiar with agent-based models at all? Okay, that's good, because then, because I know nothing about that, so I can tell you anything and you can double check afterwards. Okay, so agent-based models, okay, it's very simple. It's the idea that if you can simulate a very complex system, okay, by describing very simple behavior for each agent in your system. Okay, so these agents have very simple behavior. They react based on some specific rules. Okay, and when you put all of them together, different agents, then they impact the world in which they are, and you can start to see a simulation, and you can start to see the effect of doing something. Basically, you can play God. It's a little bit like SimCity, okay, for game players. So this goes back, it's not new, and I think one way of understanding it is Conway's Game of Life. So Conway was a mathematician, okay, in the 90s. And he defined this game where he has a universe, okay, and it's a big infinite two-dimension, like squares, okay. And the game is as follows: you have cells. A cell can live or die, and each cells have a very simple behavior that is described here. So from each iteration, they live or they die depending on their context. Okay. So when you think about it from an agent point of view, so an agent here is a cell. From an agent's point of view, it's very simple behavior. Okay. But when you play that game, so it's a zero-player game, right? But when you play the game, then what happens is that you can see very complex patterns develop out of this. Okay. So I have this video. I don't know if I can. Yeah. So here you have the cells, and you can see it's like a universe coming into motion based on those very simple rules. Okay, and because it's infinite, you can scale it, and you can start to see, it depends on the initial model. So here, we don't affect anything in the universe. Okay, there's no events, there's nothing. It just runs. But there are patterns that are coming, like we call this, for example, a gun. Okay, meaning that it's creating lines like this. And you can see actually how this universe can create itself and then completely change just based on those agents. Okay, and when you look at that, you can start to project yourself and say, what if a cell was a person? Okay, and they have specific behaviors that you define, and all of them interact together in the universe. Okay, it's and then that goes up, and actually you start to see some patterns that are you can start to see this one as a cell basically, and it follows the same algorithm. So okay, I guess I kind of lost you. What's the point with Makerspace, right? So I'm getting back to it. So the idea basically, so I'm going to start on examples, okay? But those systems, they allow you to, for example, to see the effectiveness of a vaccine policy, okay? Because people, those systems, those ways of simulating complex systems are used, for example, to see how a sickness is spreading, okay, based on agents. So agents are the people, they have simple behavior, you model that in the system, and you can see how the sickness is going from one person to another person and how it spreads. Okay? You can do the same for traffic, for example. So if you want to model and see how, if you bring in a mass transportation system, how it's going to impact your society, how it's going to impact your city, basically. Because you can start to model how people are going to use it, not use it, and you can play some events, add events to the system to see what's going to happen. Okay? So this, I'm really new to this, and so I'm going to tell you how I came into this. basically I started FABLAB SAIGON, and then I went to Hanoi, and I was trying to build some partnership with universities. Okay, and I met there a professor who is a professor and researcher in computer science, and he's working on the Gamma platform project. And the Gamma platform project is an open source system to actually be able to model that. Okay, and he told me, I want to talk to you about FabLab, and he didn't say anything about digital fabrication, makerspaces. He didn't know anything about the makers movement. But what he told me is that, you know, I thought that FabLab, they are actually the places to put these tools into the hands of people so that they can understand more about the policies, the choices that we make for societies. Because it's all a problem of modeling. It's like 3D printing, okay? 3D printing, okay, great, you can understand the technology. But then what's the challenge? The challenge is to be able to model objects. Okay, now you have like iMaterialize, right? iMaterialize, you just send them the file and they print it for you, and so, you know, yeah, some people will want to understand how it works, of course, and some people, you know, it's great that people do spend time in improving the technology of that. But then most of the work is what? Is modeling, is creation. Okay? So here he told me, and that kind of opened my eyes at the beginning. I was like, oh my God, this guy, he understands nothing about the makers movement. Right? And then I said, yeah, but somehow he's right. The key thing is how we are going to raise awareness of people that they can actually understand better the world by understanding modeling tools. It can be 3D modeling, 2D modeling, it could be agent-based modeling. It's all about being able to understand that in order to model, okay, and come up with a good design, basically. Okay, so the method, you know, I describe it slightly, you know, honestly I know nothing about that, okay. I used to study a little bit of artificial intelligence before, but that's not quite the same. But the idea is that you use a set of existing data. From that, you take from very simple behavior on agents, you create a model of the environment, you inject those behavior in agents, and then you let it run. And then you can try to play some events and see what's happening. Okay, it's like tweaking society, you know, but future society. Okay? So what is interesting in this methodology is that it can be collaborative. You know, you can take data from a lot of things, okay? And the modeling can be, you can have many points of view on the system that you're trying to model. So some people are going to say, yeah, it's more like this, and some other people will say, yeah, from my point of view, people will more react like this, if you model people, for example. Usually it can be people, it can be population of animals, it can be, you know, anything. When you start to study an ecosystem, you can use that. So yeah, he mentioned another tool which is NetLogo, and you know, from my point of view, those tools are not quite very user-friendly. Okay, they're still very geeky, and it's a lot of computer science behind. Okay, so it's maybe not ready yet for the wide public, but the idea is there. And so yeah, I mentioned that before, but a friend of mine who's running a makerspace in Paris and running CNC workshops, he says, you know, the CNC, people understand how it works in 2 hours. Okay? But once they understand how it works, then they just stay there and they don't know what to do. So it's all about modeling. Okay? And so the idea is that, you know, you can do, as I said, from 2D modeling, 3D modeling, agent-based modeling. It's some kind of same thing. And also from open source, open hardware, you can also start to have open models. Okay, and so if you go to Modeling Commons, they are actually uploading, people are uploading their agent-based modeling. They said, oh, I'm interested in that issue, I got the data, and I tried to modelize agents and things like that way. Okay? And they are using NetLogo for that. So in the same way, you know, that we had open hardware, I think that at some point, maybe we'll have open agent-based models. Okay? And so just to finish, I think that this, you know, I read that from a report from 2013, something like that, and I think that really sums up, you know, what Makerspace is changing. And makerspaces for students, they allow basically students to take control of what they learn. And so that's a really big shift in education paradigm. Okay? And basically what I'm trying to say here is that maybe the makerspace of the future, what they're going to do is that they're going to allow citizens to take control of the future because they can shape it, they can model it. Okay, it goes way beyond hardware, and that's thanks to the people, that's thanks to the culture that Makerspace is bringing. Okay, so that may be the tools that we will see in the future in Makerspace. Okay, and as a side note, I think that tools, the citizen, it's very interesting because I think that today we're at a corner where we don't rely so much on government, on big organizations anymore, but citizens are really taking ownership of the problems. So the concerns are larger. We need the tools so that the control can be bigger, but I believe that it's not only tools, it's always the capacity, it's also, the capacity for citizens to work together, to collaborate. And I think this is the proof that here, okay, we have private initiatives getting together to do something about the makers movement. Okay. And so I want to advertise a little bit as well for another project which is Open Team, and that's what they want to do at a global level. They want to connect people sharing, like citizens trying to solve problems, how to connect them and how to connect them to the next level so that they can have impact, more impact locally and even raise their impact globally without having to wait for governments, cities, nations to agree on anything.
So I think we have a bit of time. If anyone has any questions, just feel free to
Yeah. Agent-based is the idea for agent-based modeling, like the effect that makerspaces have on a society. Is that like what the idea is, or is it just agent-based modeling as a whole?
No, agent-based modeling is like a technique.
It's a technique.
It's a technique. It's
And
computer science to be able to understand complex systems.
And is the traditional like logic of computers today able to compute that sort of?
Yes.
Because it just seems that there's so many variables that.
Yeah, and it's growing because the capacity for computing has grown.
Yeah.
Like the game of life.
Yeah.
Conway's invented it in 19 something.
Yeah.
But at that time we didn't have the computer capacity.
Yeah.
So the machines was not just and if you go back to the game, it's an infinite board. So when do you stop?
Yeah.
You see what I mean? So the idea, the concept was here for a long time, but now we have the capacity to build it, and it's getting better and better every day.
And the outcome wouldn't be like an exact outcome. It'd be like a percentage confidence in whatever the outcome would be, right?
Yeah. Of course, it's not like a future. You cannot predict the future. Really.
Yeah.
But it's like helping people to imagine. If they choose to do that, then what will be the impact?
Yeah.
And then you get citizens to be more aware of the policy making.
Yeah.
Why are we building the airport here and not over there?
Yeah.
See, and actually governments are using these tools, but it's always the same thing. It's okay, why is it only a few people who know about these tools?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we bring those tools to everyone?
Yeah.
Which is what Makerspace is about. Hope it wasn't too off topic, I was like.
I think what you're talking about is it's a perfect shift. So you're talking about economic, society, wellness, and environment. And I think if you cover those four things through systems thinking, that's what you're talking about, not design thinking. It is a different thing.
Yeah.
And we're trying to push that in education as well. It's that shift to get away from products to more the systems thinking behind the process of the environment, the society, how it affects society, the society, the wellness, the health, which is
Yes.
and the economic side of it as well. So yeah.
And I think what is to leverage is the people in Makerspace. They have that attitude towards problem. So if you give them the right tools, then you can leverage that, and they are involved, they are engaged in what's going to happen next. It's not only
But I think with the maker movement, sometimes it is isolated to maybe just economic and maybe say economic and environment, the product, and then they forget about the impact it has on society, the bigger picture, and then how that has an impact on the wellness or the public health as well. So I think those four models, they're always going to be gold with that. So.
Yeah. But so the idea is that to say, you have computers in your makerspace, you have software like SolidWorks, just mention one SketchUp, and you teach people how to 3D model something. Why wouldn't you have a computer with this kind of tools on top of it and teach them how to model, complex systems so that they understand that too? And maybe out of that they will create solutions.
Okay, so thank you once again.
Thank you.